During my sister's wedding, my dad's girlfriend slapped me and said, "You cheap girl, get out." The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the grand hall, leaving everyone momentarily frozen in shock. Lily Rose stood there, her face stinging, her vision blurred by unshed tears, as she clutched the lace hem of her pastel bridesmaid's dress. How does one stand their ground when humiliated in front of a crowd on what should have been a joyful family occasion? This is a story of resilience, betrayal, and the courage it takes to confront the truth. Lily's journey will unravel not just a single moment of disgrace, but a lifetime of secrets that shaped her family dynamics. It's a story that will explore the complexities of loyalty, self-respect, and reclaiming one's dignity when the odds seem insurmountable. Lily Rose, a 28-year-old event planner, believed her life was perfectly manageable, albeit ordinary. She had a knack for bringing others' visions to life, meticulously crafting moments that brought joy to everyone but herself. A natural caretaker, she was often the one to smooth over family squabbles, ensuring the bonds held tight, even when strained. Lily's world revolved around her sister, Caroline, who was a year younger but often treated like the golden child. Every morning, Lily brewed a cup of coffee strong enough to keep her moving through back-to-back meetings, wedding setups, and last-minute client calls. Her small apartment was a stark contrast to the lavish events she orchestrated, minimalist, practical, and devoid of personal touches. It reflected her life, focused on functionality rather than indulgence. Lily and Caroline shared a complicated relationship. Where Caroline's charm and vivacity often earned her adoration, Lily's quieter demeanor kept her in the background. Caroline's upcoming wedding had turned into a colossal event, as befitting someone who had always been the center of attention. Lily had taken on the role of wedding planner, an unpaid, thankless job she accepted without hesitation, out of love and obligation. She had coordinated every detail, from the hand-picked floral arrangements to the intricate seating chart. It was supposed to be perfect, just like her sister. Yet, cracks had begun to show. While Caroline basked in the glow of her engagement, Lily noticed subtle changes in her father's behavior. He had grown distant, his usually warm demeanor clouded by tension. Then there was his girlfriend, Vivian, a woman Lily had struggled to warm up to. She had entered their lives not long after Lily's mother passed away from a sudden illness 6 years ago. Vivian's presence had always felt intrusive, but Lily had learned to tolerate her for her father's sake. Caroline, however, seemed to have embraced Vivian fully, an acceptance that left Lily feeling further alienated. Beneath her calm exterior, Lily harbored unspoken doubts about the family she had worked so hard to keep intact. She felt like an outsider, even in her own home. The wedding preparations had only amplified her feelings of isolation. Every conversation seemed to revolve around Caroline's needs, Vivian's opinions, and her father's approval, leaving Lily's contributions unacknowledged. But she told herself that this was her role, the fixer, the quiet supporter, the one who made everything work without asking for recognition. Things began to unravel a week before the wedding when Lily stumbled upon a conversation she wasn't meant to hear. In hushed tones, Vivian and Caroline were discussing saving face at the event, referencing Lily in a way that stung. She should just be grateful to be part of it, Vivian had said, her tone dripping with condescension. Caroline didn't argue. Lily walked away before she could hear more, her chest tight with hurt and anger. On the day of the wedding, the grand ballroom sparkled with fairy lights and crystal chandeliers, a testament to Lily's hard work. But as she stood on the sidelines, she felt invisible. When Vivian confronted her, accusing her of being a distraction, the slap that followed felt like a culmination of years of unspoken grievances. The humiliation was unbearable, not just for its public nature, but because it confirmed what Lily had always feared. She was expendable in her own family. At that moment, the weight of her sacrifices, her unreciprocated efforts, and her longing for acknowledgement crashed down on her. She realized that this wasn't just about a slap at a wedding. It was about reclaiming her place and her voice in a family dynamic that had silenced her for too long. Lily had spent her life building moments of joy for others. Now, she would have to confront her family, not just for the sake of justice, but to redefine her own identity. For the first time, Lily would demand the respect she deserved, even if it meant breaking the fragile facade she had worked so hard to maintain. The grand wedding was supposed to be a moment of celebration, a culmination of months of meticulous planning. Lily Rose had ensured every detail was perfect, from the silk ribbons adorning the chairs to the artisanal pastries at the dessert table. But standing in the grand ballroom, surrounded by glittering chandeliers and elegantly dressed guests, Lily felt more like an overworked assistant than a sister of the bride. The day had started with a flurry of last-minute crises. The florist had delivered the wrong shade of roses, the makeup artist was running late, and Caroline had called Lily 6 times before breakfast, demanding updates. Each time, Lily responded with calm efficiency, suppressing the growing knot in her stomach. This was Caroline's day, and Lily had vowed to make it perfect, no matter how invisible she felt. But as the ceremony approached, the subtle slights began to add up. When Lily arrived at the bridal suite to check on Caroline, Vivian, her father's girlfriend, was already there, radiating confidence as she adjusted Caroline's veil. "Oh, Lily, good, you're here," Vivian said without looking up. "Could you grab us some champagne? Caroline's a bit nervous, and we need to calm her nerves." Lily's jaw tightened, but she complied, slipping out of the room to fetch the drinks. When she returned, the conversation had shifted to how fortunate it was that Vivian had stepped in to help coordinate. "I mean, weddings are so complex," Vivian said with a laugh. "It's a good thing I have experience with these things." Lily's cheeks burned. She wanted to shout that she had planned the entire wedding, that every intricate detail was her doing. Instead, she swallowed the hurt, reminding herself that this wasn't the time to stir up conflict. The ceremony passed without incident, and for a brief moment, Lily allowed herself to feel pride as she watched Caroline walk down the aisle. The sun streamed through the stained glass windows, casting a rainbow of colors over the room. It was beautiful, and Lily's heart swelled with the hope that maybe, just maybe, the day would be worth it. That hope was short-lived. During the reception, as guests mingled and the sound of clinking glasses and laughter filled the air, Lily was summoned by Vivian. "Lily, we need to talk," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. They stepped into a quiet corner near the back of the hall. Vivian's expression was tight, her lips pursed as she looked Lily over. "Listen," she began, "you've done a fine job with the wedding, but I've noticed something. You're, how do I put this? A bit too noticeable." Lily frowned. "I'm not sure I understand." Vivian sighed dramatically. "This is Caroline's day. The attention should be on her. But your presence is a bit distracting. Maybe it's the dress or the way you're carrying yourself. Either way, it's pulling focus from the bride." Lily felt the air leave her lungs. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice shaking. Vivian crossed her arms. "I'm just saying that perhaps it's best if you take a step back. Maybe head home early. It'll make things smoother for everyone." Lily's mind raced. After everything she had done to ensure the wedding's success, after the sleepless nights and countless sacrifices, she was being told to leave. The indignity of it made her hands clench into fists. "No," Lily said firmly, surprising even herself. "I'm not leaving. I've worked too hard for this day." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic, Lily. Just think of the bigger picture." "The bigger picture?" Lily snapped, her voice rising. "The bigger picture is that I've been treated like an afterthought in my own family. I've planned every detail of this wedding, and now you want to push me out because I'm a distraction." Their argument had begun to draw attention, and Vivian's expression turned icy. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "You're making a scene." Lily opened her mouth to respond, but before she could, Vivian's hand flew up, delivering a sharp slap to Lily's cheek. The room fell silent, the music cutting off as heads turned toward the commotion. Lily stood frozen, her face stinging and her heart pounding. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. This was the breaking point. She had spent her entire life bending over backward to keep the peace, to earn her family's approval, to make herself small so others could shine. No more. Straightening her back, Lily took a deep breath. "You've made a mistake," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor of emotion underneath. "I'm not going anywhere." And with that, she turned and walked back into the ballroom, leaving Vivian standing in stunned silence. Lily's mind was made up. It was time to stop being the fixer, the invisible supporter. It was time to reclaim her voice and her place in the family, no matter the cost. As Lily Rose re-entered the grand ballroom, her heart pounded with a mix of humiliation and resolve. The sting of Vivian's slap lingered on her cheek, but it was the weight of years of silence and complacency that pressed on her chest. The guests' eyes followed her as she walked back toward her table, whispers swirling like smoke through the glittering air. She could feel the judgment in their gazes, but she held her head high, refusing to let their scrutiny crush her. The music resumed, the awkward silence filled by the steady hum of conversation, though the energy of the celebration had shifted. Caroline, radiant in her bridal gown, rushed over with a mix of concern and irritation. "What happened?" she hissed, grabbing Lily's arm. "Vivian just said you were causing a scene. Lily, can't you keep it together for one day?" Lily's stomach churned. "A scene," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Do you even care what happened, Caroline? Or are you just worried about how it makes you look?" Caroline blinked, momentarily taken aback, but quickly recovered. "I don't have time for this," she snapped. "Just stay out of trouble, okay?" Without waiting for an answer, she turned and glided back into the crowd, leaving Lily standing alone. Lily clenched her fists. For years, she had tolerated being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated. She had told herself it was better to keep the peace, to avoid confrontation, to do whatever was necessary to hold her fractured family together. But Vivian's slap had shattered that illusion. It wasn't just about the humiliation, it was about the realization that she had allowed herself to be treated as less than she deserved. The evening wore on, and Lily began to notice the cracks in the family dynamic she had worked so hard to preserve. Her father, once the solid foundation of her world, seemed distant, his attention wholly focused on Vivian. He barely looked at Lily, and when he did, his eyes were filled with something she couldn't quite place. Was it guilt? Shame? Or indifference? Vivian, meanwhile, carried on as if nothing had happened. She charmed the guests, laughed at jokes, and offered unsolicited advice to anyone within earshot. But now and then, Lily caught her glancing in her direction, her expression cold and calculating. It was during one of these moments that an idea began to form in Lily's mind. She had spent her life avoiding conflict, but maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to confront the truth, no matter how painful. She didn't know what she would find, but she was determined to uncover the secrets that had shaped her family and reclaim her place within it. The opportunity came later that night when the guests began to thin out, and the energy of the reception shifted from festive to subdued. Lily saw her father standing alone near the bar, nursing a glass of whiskey. Taking a deep breath, she approached him. "Dad," she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "Can we talk?" He looked at her, his eyes heavy with something she couldn't quite name. "Of course," he said, his tone wary. They stepped outside into the cool night air. The distant hum of the city provided a backdrop to the tension between them. Lily hesitated, unsure how to begin. "Finally," she said, "why didn't you stop her?" Her father frowned. "Stop who?" "Vivian," Lily said, her voice rising. "She slapped me, Dad. In front of everyone. And you did nothing." He sighed, running a hand through his thinning hair. "Lily, it's complicated." "No," she said firmly. "It's not. You've always chosen her over me, over Caroline, over us. Why? What is it about her that makes you forget your own family?" Her father's face crumpled, and for a moment, she thought he might finally tell her the truth. But instead, he shook his head. "You don't understand," he said quietly. "Vivian, she's complicated. She's been through a lot." Lily laughed bitterly. "And that excuses everything? Her manipulation? Her cruelty? What about what we've been through? What about what I've been through? Do we not matter to you anymore?" Her father looked at her, his eyes filled with something close to regret. "You matter," he said softly. "You've always mattered." "Then show it," Lily said, her voice breaking. "Because right now, it doesn't feel like we do." As they stood there in the darkness, the distance between them felt insurmountable. Lily realized that the answers she sought might not come from her father. She would have to find them herself. The next morning, Lily began to dig. She went through old photo albums, letters, and documents, looking for clues about Vivian's past and her father's relationship with her. What she found was a trail of inconsistencies and half-truths that only deepened her resolve. There were financial transactions that didn't add up, letters that hinted at secrets her father had kept hidden, and photographs that told a story very different from the one she had always believed. As the pieces began to come together, Lily realized that the facade her family had maintained for so long was just that, a facade. And now that she had seen the cracks, there was no going back. She would confront the truth, no matter how painful, and she would fight for the respect and recognition she deserved. The confrontation came sooner than she expected. That evening, as the family gathered for a post-wedding brunch, Lily couldn't hold back any longer. "I need to say something," she announced, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The room fell silent, all eyes on her. Caroline looked annoyed, her father wary, and Vivian looked smug as if she already knew what was coming. Lily took a deep breath. "I'm done being the invisible one. I've spent my whole life trying to keep this family together, and I've sacrificed so much to make everyone else happy. But I can't do it anymore. I won't do it anymore." Her father opened his mouth to speak, but Lily held up a hand. "No, Dad. It's my turn to talk. You've let Vivian manipulate you and push me aside for years, and I've had enough. I deserve better. We all do." Vivian's smile faltered, and for the first time, Lily saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. But Lily didn't stop. She laid everything bare, the secrets she had uncovered, the truths she had long ignored, and the pain she had carried for so long. By the time she finished, the room was silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. For the first time, Lily felt free. She didn't know what would come next, but she knew one thing for certain: she would no longer be the invisible one. She would fight for her place in the world, no matter what it cost. The family brunch was supposed to be a celebration, a moment to bask in the aftermath of Caroline's picture-perfect wedding. But as Lily Rose's words hung in the air, the celebratory mood evaporated, replaced by a tension so thick it felt like it could crush the room. Lily's heart pounded as she stood before her family, her cheeks flushed and her hands trembling slightly. For the first time in her life, she was not backing down. She had reached her breaking point, and this was her moment to reclaim her voice. Her father, who had always been a stoic figure in her life, sat across the table, his expression unreadable. Caroline shifted uncomfortably, her perfectly manicured nails tapping nervously against her glass of orange juice. And then there was Vivian, her father's girlfriend, seated with the poise of someone who believed they were untouchable. But even Vivian couldn't hide the flicker of discomfort that crossed her face as Lily stared her down. "You think you can control everything, don't you?" Lily said, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "For years, you've manipulated Dad, Caroline, and this entire family, and we've all let you get away with it. But not anymore." Vivian's lips curved into a tight smile. "Lily, dear, I think you're being a bit dramatic. This is hardly the time or place for such accusations." "Oh, I think it's exactly the right time," Lily shot back. "You slapped me yesterday, Vivian. In front of everyone. And instead of apologizing, you pretended like it never happened. That's who you are, isn't it? You sweep everything under the rug and expect everyone to fall in line." Caroline's eyes widened, and she glanced nervously at their father. "Vivian, is that true?" she asked, her voice hesitant. Vivian's smile faltered. "I was merely trying to discipline her. She was causing a scene." Lily's father finally spoke, his voice low and strained. "Vivian, you slapped her?" Vivian's composure cracked further. "It was a misunderstanding. She was out of line. I was trying to protect the wedding from unnecessary drama." "Unnecessary drama?" Lily repeated, her voice rising. "That's rich coming from you. You've been the source of unnecessary drama in this family for years. Do you think I haven't noticed how you've isolated Dad from me and Caroline? How you've inserted yourself into every aspect of our lives while pushing us further and further away?" Her father looked down, his hands gripping the edge of the table. Lily turned to him, her eyes softening slightly. "Dad, I'm not trying to hurt you, but you have to see what's been happening. Vivian doesn't care about this family. She only cares about controlling it." Vivian's voice turned icy. "That's enough. Lily, you're making baseless accusations because you can't handle the fact that your father has moved on. You're clinging to the past, and it's pathetic." Lily's jaw tightened, but she forced herself to remain calm. "I have proof," she said, pulling out a folder she had brought with her. She laid it on the table and opened it, revealing financial statements, letters, and photographs. "I found these yesterday. Bank transfers from Dad's account to yours, Vivian. Large amounts. And these letters? They're from your previous relationships. Every single one ended the same way, with you taking what you could and leaving." The color drained from Vivian's face. "How dare you go through my things?" she hissed. "How dare you exploit my father?" Lily shot back. "You've been siphoning money from him for years, haven't you? And what about this?" She held up a photograph of Vivian with another man, dated just a few months earlier. "You're not even loyal to him." The room fell silent. Lily's father stared at the evidence, his face pale. Vivian, is this true? Vivian's composure shattered. You're going to take her word over mine, she said, her voice rising. After everything I've done for you? Her father didn't respond immediately. He looked at Lily, then at Caroline, who seemed frozen in shock. Finally, he said, Vivian, I need you to leave. Vivian's eyes widened. You can't be serious. Leave, he repeated, his voice firmer this time. Vivian stood, her face a mask of fury. You'll regret this, she said, grabbing her purse and storming out of the room. The silence that followed was deafening. Lily's father finally looked at her, his eyes filled with sorrow. Lily, I'm so sorry, he said, his voice breaking. I should have seen it. I should have listened to you. Lily felt tears welling in her eyes, but she blinked them back. I just want our family back, Dad, she said softly. I want us to be honest with each other. No more secrets. No more manipulation. He nodded, reaching across the table to take her hand. You're right. No more secrets. Caroline, who had been silent throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. Lily, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I've been so focused on my own life that I didn't see what was happening. Lily turned to her, a small smile breaking through her tears. It's okay. We can fix this. Together. For the first time in years, Lily felt a sense of hope. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, it felt like her family was ready to walk it together. She had found her voice, and in doing so, she had begun to rebuild the bonds that had been broken. It wasn't the ending she had imagined, but it was a new beginning. And for Lily, that was enough. The room was quiet after Vivian's dramatic exit, the air heavy with the weight of what had just transpired. Lily Rose took a deep breath, steadying herself as she looked around the table. Her father sat with his head in his hands, his shoulders hunched as though the burden of his choices had finally caught up to him. Caroline's face was a mixture of guilt and sadness, her usual composure shattered. Lily felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. For the first time, she had stood up for herself, and though the path forward was uncertain, she knew she had done the right thing. Slowly, she reached out to place a comforting hand on her father's arm. Dad, she said softly, her voice steady but gentle, we're going to be okay. But we need to move forward together. Her father lifted his head, his eyes red and tired, but filled with a glimmer of hope. I've made so many mistakes, Lily. I let her come between us. I let her hurt you. His voice broke and he looked down again. I'm so sorry. Lily squeezed his arm. What matters now is what we do next, she said. We can rebuild. But it has to start with honesty. No more avoiding the hard conversations. No more silence. Caroline nodded, finally speaking. Lily's right, Dad. We've all been ignoring things for too long. I've been selfish. I should have been there for you, for both of you, instead of just focusing on myself. She looked at Lily, her expression sincere. I'm sorry for the way I've treated you, for not seeing how much you've done for this family. Lily's lips curved into a small smile. Thank you, Caroline. That means a lot. The three of them sat in silence for a moment, the tension slowly giving way to a sense of tentative understanding. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. In the days that followed, the family began to take the first steps toward healing. Vivian's departure left a void, but it also brought a sense of clarity. Lily's father sought counseling to address the emotional wounds he had ignored for so long, and he worked to rebuild trust with his daughters. Caroline, true to her word, made an effort to be more present and supportive, finding ways to connect with Lily that didn't revolve around the competitive undertones of their past. For Lily, the changes were both liberating and challenging. She no longer felt the weight of being the family fixer, the invisible glue holding everything together. Instead, she focused on herself, exploring her passions and ambitions for the first time in years. She started taking art classes, something she had always dreamed of but never pursued. Each stroke of the brush felt like a small act of reclamation, a way to express the parts of herself that had been buried under years of silence and self-sacrifice. One afternoon, as she painted in the small studio she had set up in her apartment, her father stopped by unexpectedly. He held a small box in his hands, his expression a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. "What's this?" Lily asked, setting down her brush. "It's something I should have given you a long time ago," he said, handing her the box. Inside was an old, weathered photo album. Lily opened it carefully, her breath catching as she saw the pictures inside, snapshots of her childhood, moments with her mother, family vacations she had almost forgotten. "I found this in the attic," her father said. "I've been holding on to it, but I think it belongs with you now." Lily flipped through the pages, her eyes misting over as she saw herself and Caroline as children, their mother smiling warmly in nearly every photo. It was a reminder of what they had once been before loss and time had fractured their family. "Thank you, Dad," Lily said, her voice thick with emotion. "This means more than you know." He nodded, his expression softening. "I'm proud of you, Lily. For everything. For standing up for yourself, for us. You've shown me what it means to be brave." As her father left, Lily sat with the album in her lap, a sense of peace settling over her. She knew there was still work to be done, that healing was a process and not an event. But for the first time, she felt like she was on solid ground, her was no longer drowned out by the needs and demands of others. Weeks turned into months, and the family found a new rhythm. Caroline often invited Lily over for dinners, and their conversations grew deeper and more meaningful. Their father began to share stories from his past, opening up in ways he never had before. The fractures in their relationships didn't disappear overnight, but they were slowly being mended, one honest conversation at a time. On a crisp autumn evening, the three of them gathered at a small cafe near Lily's apartment. Over steaming cups of coffee and laughter-filled stories, they finally felt like a family again. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Lily, that was more than enough. Looking out the window at the golden leaves falling gently to the ground, Lily smiled. She had fought for her voice, for her place in the world, and for her family. And in the process, she had discovered something even more important herself. Thank you for joining us on Lily's powerful journey of resilience and self-discovery. Her story reminds us all that finding your voice and standing up for yourself is not just about reclaiming your dignity, but also about inspiring those around you to change for the better. If this story resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts. How would you handle a situation like Lily's? Do you have a story of your own where you had to stand up for yourself against all odds? Share your experiences in the comments below. We can't wait to read them. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and show your support. Subscribe to our channel for more empowering stories and thought-provoking content. Every like, comment, and subscription helps us bring you more incredible tales like this one. Until next time, remember, your voice matters. Don't be afraid to use it.